I apologize for the first upload of this. The sound wasn't on, but I have the sound on now. So I started this video off with saying that I told you that there was a plan for the Falcons to trade back into the first round. And with the 31st pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons selected Kaleb McGary, the offensive tackle out of Washington. And I have nothing against this pick. Well, I have nothing against this pick as a person and as an athlete. But I don't like this pick for two reasons. Well, three. One, with where the pick is selected. Because I feel like that he could have at least been available in that second round, because the Falcons, they had a pretty early second round pick. I believe it was pick 45. So I think he probably still would have been there. Number two, the whole trade exchange. I didn't like that either. And number three, there were better offensive tackles that were available at pick 31. And since the NFL draft is over and the Patriots went with N'Keal Harry, better ones on the board right now. So 3 reasons why I don't like that pick. So let me go over the first one real quick. When I said that there was going to be a plan for the Falcons to trade back in the first round, I really thought it was going to be for somebody on defense. I really thought that. I thought they were going to trade back in that first round for a Greedy Williams. Or even a Montez Sweat, but the Redskins ended up doing that. I thought it was going to be for one of those two players. Because I had gotten done saying earlier with Chris Lindstrom that I'm not excited about it, but I'm not mad about it. Because offensive line help is something that the Falcons need. But I feel like this pick was a waste. And I was saying with Chris Lindstrom, he probably wasn't plan A for the Falcons to begin with. He was probably plan C or D. I definitely think he was plan C or D because I think they wanted Ed Oliver, but they probably couldn't find the right trading partner to get Ed Oliver and trade up for him. They were going to go with Christian Wilkins, but Miami pulled off a blindside and went with Christian Wilkins instead of Dwayne Haskins, like what a lot of people were thinking at that time. So Chris Lindstrom, here he is with plan C or D. And the Falcons realize that they need offensive line help, so you might as well go with him. I then thought that there's a possibility that the Falcons are going to trade back into the first round because they have more picks this season than what they have had in seasons past. Since they've had a total of 9 picks this year, I imagine them trading back into the first round because that's what teams do when they have more picks than normal. When they have more picks than the average, is they tend to trade back in the first round. We've seen the Browns have trade back into the first round before, when they've had multiple first round picks already. We saw them go with David Njoku in the first round a couple years ago when they traded back in there. We've seen the 49ers trade back in the first round after gaining extra draft picks by manipulating the Bears into taking Mitch Trubisky. And Bears fans did not have a good night that night. But Trubisky's doing solid right now, but that's neither here nor there. That's another video for another day. So, I thought, as soon as I saw that the Falcons had traded back in the first round, I assumed that it was going to be for somebody like Greedy Williams because the Falcons need a little bit of help in the secondary. But I also could have thought this probably could have been for maybe Zach Allen or even Jalen Ferguson. Even though Jalen Ferguson's not a first-round pick material because he wasn't invited to the Combine Group of 5 school. We don't really know what he's capable of. We don't know very much about him. I thought it was going to be for one of those two. Well, even 3. I thought it could have been for either Zach Allen or Greedy Williams. One of those two mostly. It could have been a long shot for Jalen Ferguson, but I would have loved to have had Jalen Ferguson. But instead they go with offensive tackle Kaleb McGary, who I thought probably at best would have been available tomorrow. Well, he definitely would have been by the time the Falcons came on the clock. I can't remember what pick it was. Like I said, I believe it was pick 45. But here is the full trade, and there's a reason why I'm upset with this pick. I'm not upset with the pick as an athlete. I'm just upset with the pick as where it was. So the full deal with the Rams. The Rams gave the Falcons pick 31 and it was 203. In exchange, the Falcons gave up their second round pick and their third round pick. So just to draft Kaleb McGary, who I thought was, maybe everyone thought that he would have been available in the second round, maybe even third round. So they gave up 2 picks just to move in for Kaleb McGary. Yes, the offensive line needs help, but the defense also needs some work as well. Because I'm very surprised that the Falcons didn't even touch defense tonight. You would think, with Dan Quinn being a defensive guy, Dan Quinn making himself the defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons, you would think that he was going to go with defense to improve that defense. But he didn't. He just focused on the offensive line. You would think that the Falcons would have gotten defense from the 2 picks, but 2 offensive line picks. So I'm just surprised by it. I'm sure a lot of Falcons fans are as well. But let's just go over some of the picks, some of the defensive players that were still available. Zach Allen, Jalen Ferguson, Chase Winovich, Greedy Williams. And since they drafted an offensive tackle, let's name some of the offensive tackles that were still available that are probably better than Kaleb McGary. Jawan Taylor, who I thought was going to be a top 5 pick tonight. Cody Ford, who I thought could have been a top 15 pick tonight. Dalton Risner, who I thought could have been a late first rounder. So just some of the players that would have been a much better selection for Atlanta in that situation. So now the Falcons, they have doomed themselves. They have screwed themselves for tomorrow. So they have no picks tomorrow night. I think they've screwed themselves over. And I think they're going to regret it by the time October rolls around. Because I'll bet that Falcons defense, it's not going to be what we were hoping for. The Falcons defense, they were mediocre last year. Partly because of injuries. But since Neal and Deion Jones are coming back, quite possibly, we're going to see the status quo Falcons defense that we're expecting. We're expecting just that average defense that's mediocre most of the time, but they have average performances, and they're going to rely on the offense scoring 30 points a game. That's pretty much how it's going to be. Unless the Falcons are going to at least score, probably have the type of offense they had in 2016, then there's just no way the Falcons are going to even win 5 games next year. They've screwed themselves on defense. They have no picks tomorrow unless they plan to magically, or not really magically, but try to make another genius trade by giving up some of those third-day picks to trade into the second day. I just can't see it happening. But overall, my final reaction to this, I'll be optimistic. At least the offensive line has some protection. I just felt like it wasn't the right decision to give up 2 picks, because picks are a necessity for teams like the Falcons. They're necessities for anybody. I just felt like there's better options at the offensive tackle position. Probably better defensive players available that they could have had as well. I just think that they've screwed themselves for the rest of this draft. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's all I have. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time. I'll be back in a little bit with the overall grades for the first round. So I'll see you then.